He slammed the door shut. The whole house shook. He started shouting swear words and awful, awful, horrible names through the door. Then I heard him take out all of his anger on my kids. That's the afternoon that I said to myself, I was absolutely done being treated like garbage. And I started planning my escape.
Wow, that takes a lot to get there. It's really hard, especially when you see how they're treating the kids and taking it out on them all because they don't have that little bit of control because they wanted to bring you down and not give you the things that you need in order to be healthy and to live life. Like, as you were planning this escape, and I love that word escape because it's not just about leaving. You have to be strategic depending on the situation. And as you're escaping this cage that you've been in, are there any like people or organizations or even practices that became lifelines for you during this transition?
Absolutely. Absolutely. My parents were absolutely fantastic. I had let my parents know ahead of time what day I was going to leave. So obviously, I started planning things ahead of time. I had actually let my two oldest kids know a couple days in advance as well so that they could help the youngest pack things up.
Sorry to interrupt. You have four children, is that right?
I I do. I have 4
Okay.
children. I had my parents come and help me pack up everything all in one day. They came in on a Friday. I picked a Friday because, of course, it's the end of a school week. And I was able to tell the younger ones that they were going to go and stay at their grandparents' house for a while. So, of course, they're like,
Mhm.
woohoo! Going to grandma and grandpa's
Mm,
house. So it was a much easier transition for the younger two. The older
good.
two, they're smart kids. They knew what was going on. They knew all the tension that had been building up. So as soon as I said, we're leaving, please pack up as much as you can. Anything important and you need to hide your bags, they knew and they just did it. They packed
Yeah.
everything up. And my parents came, they picked up the kids. And once the kids were safe at my parents' house, my dad came back to get me and anything that was left behind. We actually waited for Mr. X to return from work. And with my dad by my side, I told him that I was leaving and that the kids were already gone. I
Mm.
took my dog and my dad and I left.
I'm glad he was there for you.
Yes, my dad was absolutely there. My dad actually stood between Mr. X and I. We had everything planned out very well. Once I got settled back at my parents' house, I actually contacted the Rowan House, which is in High River, Alberta. It's an emergency shelter for women experiencing domestic violence and abuse. And I needed to know how to deal with leaving with the kids and what my rights were because I didn't want to be seen as a kidnapper, but I also didn't want to leave them in an abusive environment. You
Yeah.
know, they were phenomenal. They were able to give me all the information I needed regarding Mr. X having visits and how to proceed with them, who should drive them safely, and just how to do everything the right way. They also got me enrolled in a course for abused women.
Good.
That was really fantastic. The I've also been a woman of faith, but at that point in my life, faith had really withered away a lot. I didn't know what to believe. I didn't understand how my life had turned out the way it had. And I was in such a low place, but I still prayed. Honestly, I don't even remember right now what I had prayed for. I hadn't cried. I didn't want to. Someone also suggested the Netflix limited series Made. This was another interesting resource, by the way. I don't know if you've seen that. If you do, watch it from start to finish. It's an incredibly powerful series, especially if you've experienced any type of abuse. By the time that I reached the end of the second episode, I had to get up off the couch. I went to the room that my daughter and I were sharing with my parents, and I cried for the first time since I left. And I cried a lot, and I
Oh,
mean a lot. I didn't cry over Mr. X, not at all. I think it was relief. I think it's because I realized I'd finally gained a freedom that I had literally never known before.
mm.
It was like the weight of the world had fallen off my shoulders. And in that moment, I knew I was never going back.
I mean, that's really powerful, honestly. That's amazing. What would you tell someone who believes that once you've chosen a path, you're stuck with it? What would you tell them in a situation like this? I know a lot of people view marriage as a rock solid covenant. Oh, well, you chose that path, so you should lie in the bed that you made. What would you tell someone who has been told this or who actually believes once you're chosen a path, you're stuck with it?
I was told this so many times in my marriage, by the way. Do you know how often I was told these just growing pains? Marriages are supposed to be like this. They have their
Hmm.
ups and downs. You just need to stand firm. There's always a silver lining. How
Yeah.
many of us are told that? Right? They were wrong. This isn't the case with all marriages, and it definitely wasn't with mine. When you're dealing with narcissistic abuse, there's never a silver lining. You can't stand firm because you're going to be knocked down over and over and over until you're left curled up and bleeding in a corner.
Hmm.
There's a lot of people living in relationships like mine. When
Yep.
I left mine for good, for the very first time. I just said, that's it, I'm done living a certain way. After 17 years, then I realized there has to be something better for me and my kids. But it still took
Yeah.
me 17 years to realize. So many people believe that once you're married, once you've picked that person, you have to stay no matter how they treat you. I just think that's really sad. You want to know a sad fact?
What?
Survivors of abuse who leave their abuser will return to their abuser on average 7 times before they leave for good.
That is a lot. And it's
That's
so sad that
assuming
they're so confused and so abused that they actually believe that it can change.
That's assuming they survive that long
Very
because
true.
some don't even make it out. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yep.
They
Yep.
they don't even realize that life has so many different paths and that you're not just stuck on one.
They deserve better. That's the other thing. You need to know that you deserve so much more than that.
If you are listening right now, and if you feel like you're stuck in one place on one path and it's leading you down a dark place, you can get off anytime you choose. You can make that choice. Like, you're the only one that can choose a new path, and you have to want to take it.
That's the thing. You have to choose it. Otherwise, people can't help you. They can try.
But there's
Well,
always something new.
there is. And there is always another choice. It's just sometimes really hard to see it. And my hope is that people are going to be able to see the better choice for them and to live the life that they want. Being through all of this, how can even the hardest journeys shift towards hope? What's your thought on that?
I think everyone's journey is completely different. None of us can honestly compare. We can all share our stories, and we should, by the way. We need to all
Yes.
share our stories and our experiences, but everyone is going to experience something different. And the way we try and cope with abuse in a different way. Because, like I said, nobody can really cope. I really don't like the word cope because
Mm.
I don't think there really is such thing as coping when it comes to abuse.
That's more like a Band-Aid, you're just covering the problem, it's not fixing it.
So this is my take on how I saw things or how I I still see things sometimes, although things are much better for me now.
Good.
There's days that are so dark when the thought of tomorrow literally sickens you because you don't even want to wake up because waking up means the same thing starting over and over. And every day is so painful. It's mentally draining and it's physically exhausting.
Yeah.
And then okay days, when you can put on that fake smile for your kids, you kiss your partner and you let them touch you even when you dread the thought of their touch. Then there's the great days when you laugh, you do all your chores happily, you're like Cinderella,
Mhm.
you'll sing a little happy song, you do everything your partner says just to please them, to keep the environment positive and cheerful. Regardless of what kind of days you're having on your journey or how hard it is or isn't, the biggest thing is that you need to know that you're not alone.
Mhm.
I say this because I felt alone. I felt like I was the only one. I felt like
Mm.
no one would understand anything that I went through. I felt like I was being foolish. I was overthinking. I was always over exaggerating because Mr. X always told me I was over exaggerating. I was forgetful. And I was crazy
Mm.
all the time. I wasn't even allowed to cry.
Mm.
But guess what? I was never alone. People did understand me. I just didn't
Mhm.
know until I started to share my story. I wasn't foolish, overthinking, or exaggerating. I wasn't forgetting everything, and I was not crazy. I am allowed to cry.
Yes.
You are not alone. You can share your story with anyone you choose to.
Mm.
You are not crazy and you can cry. When
Yes.
you understand this, your journey not only shifts towards hope, but you gain this incredible boldness that you never realized you had. And that is an incredibly beautiful thing.
It is. It's true. When you realize who you truly are and what's really happening, it's like a springboard. It's not always going to be easy, but it's a springboard. And it's great. I'm so glad you were able to come to this conclusion, Asha. And
And of
it's
course, I cried
encouraging.
when I say I'm allowed to cry. Yes,
Of
yes,
course. And you should.
absolutely.
It's emotional. And then no matter how many years it's been since you've been out, it's still raw. Because of this, are there resources or support groups, organizations, things like that that you would highly recommend? I know it's particular to maybe a certain area that you've lived in, but for other people experiencing this kind of abuse, whether physical or mental, in rural and smaller communities, what type of resources and that do you recommend?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I had called Rowan House Society, which is located in River, Alberta. They were so encouraging and they gave me a lot of different resources. They also will provide a whole bunch of separate resources. They're really fantastic. I can definitely also suggest the Calgary Women's Center. They have a lot of different resources. They provide a lot of things, especially for women with children. They provide different fun things to do in the community. They're really fantastic with stuff like that. They offered us things for entertainment around the city at very low or no cost, things that we could do with the kids. That was really fantastic at the time. Now, I really want to mention, and this is very important, narcissistic abuse isn't subjective and it can happen to anyone. I'm kind of speaking on behalf of women, but this can happen to men just the
Mhm.
same as women. So there's an amazing resource for men, and it is the Calgary Counseling Center. So, for any men struggling with this, that is a fantastic resource. So, if there are any women out there that happen to know men that are going through this, please, if you live in the Calgary area, please have them contact the Calgary Counseling Center because that's a fantastic resource. And if you're listening to this podcast and you are not in the Calgary or surrounding area, but you are not sure of where to reach out to, please just send us a message and your location, and we will very gladly do some research and see what resources we can find in your area for you. We would be
Mm,
really happy to do that for you.
for sure.
It would definitely be our pleasure because having the right resources is so important because you need to have the support.
Yes, you do. Well, that's good. Oh, so hard to know where to go from this point. Asha, for listeners that are supporting a loved one in an abusive relationship, what should they know or how can they truly help that person?
That's a great question, but that's also a really tough question. Because when you're still in a relationship, I can guarantee that you're either going to be in denial.
Hmm.
So if anyone tries to tell you that something's wrong with your relationship, of course, you're going to deny it and you're going to be angry with that person. And of course, you're going to then defend your partner. On the other hand, you might start to become aware of the abuse yourself. Like we were talking about, sometimes you start to become aware of the abuse, but you're too afraid to leave, or you feel like there's still hope that your partner can change. So it's not really going to matter what anyone says because you're just going to convince yourself that change is totally possible and everything is just gonna be better. I remember saying to myself that anytime I saw a little bit of hope or whatever, I thought things have got to go back to the way we were when we were married. I remember marrying
Mm,
this person and I remember dating this person. I'm sure that person is in there somewhere. It's gotta get better at some point. It's gotta go back to that, right?
yeah.
And we'll convince ourselves of this over and over and over again. And then, of course, we'll hear the words, I love you. I'll
Mm,
change. Things are going to get better. I promise. I swear. It becomes this vicious cycle. And you believe it. You believe those words because things are good for a few hours, a
hmm.
week. If you're really lucky, maybe a month, a few months.
Yeah.
If you really want to help someone you know is being abused, listen to them.
Yes. Don't discount what they're saying.
Listen to them very carefully. Listen to every good story they tell and listen to their bad stories. But most importantly, do not tell someone who's being abused to leave their partner. You
Hmm.
need to make sure that leaving is a decision that they make completely on their own. You know why? It gives the victim their power. And it's such a strong sense of power that they're far less likely to return to their abuser. Do you remember that statistic that I
Yes.
said? The reason why they tend to go back to their abuser up to 7 times is because most of those are told to leave their abuser. They're told by someone else.
Mm,
They're convinced you need to leave, you need to leave, you need to leave. This person's bad, you need to leave.
yeah.
It's not them. It's not them choosing. They aren't taking the power into their own hands. But see, when they take that power, when
And
they're
those
the powerful one, when they make that choice and they step out the door, man, that's a powerful thing.
it is. And I mean, you know, it's no different than anything. We all have to make choices for ourselves. It doesn't hurt for people to say, this isn't good. You deserve better. We're going to be here for you. But you're right. A lot of times people come and claim abuse and people don't believe them, or people think can't be that bad, or they believe them and they are wanting help, but they don't want to leave. I mean, there's so many different scenarios. And if you've never been in that situation, the worst thing you can do is judge their emotion because they're confused and they don't know sometimes what else to do. That's really good advice, Asha. It's good coming from somebody who's been through it.
Or it's
Really good to,
opposite. They tell people everything is great. My partner is great when everything is completely opposite.
yeah.
Now, I'm also going to say one more thing, and this is very helpful. Okay. Use encouragement. I remember being put down so often and told so many times that I was fat, lazy,
Mm,
boring, forgetful, talk too much. The list could have gone on and on. So you need to tell them how wonderful they are.
yeah.
Compliment them. Tell them how beautiful or how handsome they look. Tell them how amazing their hair is, how nice their clothes are, or compliment their cooking, baking, their whatever, how amazing they are at their job. Doesn't matter what it is. Compliment them. When you do this, it makes them feel good. The more you make
They feel
someone feel
useful.
good about themselves, the more likely they are to want to start to feel good
Yeah.
every day. The more likely they'll recognize who they really are and that they deserve so much more. You know how I know?
Mhm.
Because I did. When I had other people just wanting to talk to me, there were so many positive things that came into my life that I started to realize what I was missing out on. Knew I was better than what I was getting, you know?
Yes.
And I had people speak into my life that were so kind and they were so positive. The more loving and the more encouraging you are with people, the more they will realize they have value and they need that.
Yeah, and I think honestly, it means so much more for somebody who's stuck in this rut of abuse. But really, everybody could use that. Your self worth, your self identity is what propels you in the directions you go in life. And when you don't know who that is, or when you feel like it's been beaten out of you through cruelty, you don't know what else to choose. It's so helpful for people to be positive and to encourage one another. Simple things like I remember seeing a lady at a mall and I just looked at her and said, "Oh, that dress looks really nice on you." It did. I wasn't lying. You should have seen how her face just beamed. It's just simple things we don't realize make such a huge difference in other people's lives and how it can really propel them in a good direction when somebody's already going through something horrific. They need it so much more. That's really good advice. Thank you.
Yeah, people just need it.
So, what's something beautiful that you've discovered about yourself, your life since choosing this freedom?
Well, I've walked a lot of different new paths. I've had a lot of different types of new freedoms since walking away from Mr. X. Some equally as bad because I was still in a really bad place after walking away. The past honestly don't disappear overnight. A lot of them still haunt me today, and some never really go away. But some of those paths and freedoms literally brought me different kinds of heartache that I'd actually never experienced before. They were equally as painful because
Mm,
part of me felt like I was stepping right back into the same traps, just new surroundings that literally had me completely fooled. I remember reaching one point and I said to myself, I can't do this anymore. I was at this point in my life where I don't even know where I'm going with life. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want any more pain. If this is what my new path looks like, I don't want this.
yeah.
I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Then I thought, okay, I got to move on. I can't just sit still. I got to take one more step. I got to keep trying. I got to try one more time. It
Yeah.
was scary at first. Things have been rocky, up and down, but truthfully, and I love my newfound freedom. I love my new path. I love it. It's not easy, but I am learning who I truly am. I am finding new ways to conquer my fears. I am accepting me for exactly who I was made to be. I'm talking a whole package deal, just me, plain me. I am not perfect. By the way, I am forgetful sometimes. I do talk a lot. I was shy as a little kid, but I ain't shy anymore. Um, I have a lot of health issues still, but guess what?
Oh,
I am beautiful. I
yes.
love with all my heart, and I have the most wonderful children. I have an amazing fiance, and I know that I'm loved.
That's absolutely amazing. That is every point in life that we all want to get to. You've come through a lot of fire to get to this point, and it's so encouraging to see how positive you are about this. And I know you really value prayer and you pray about a lot of things and a lot of people. Is there a prayer or a piece of encouragement that you would like to leave with our listeners here who may feel like they're trapped or that they're alone right now?
There definitely is. My prayer for the listeners right now would be for them to see how truly amazing and valuable they are. That they
Yes.
realize that they're not defined by the names they're called, they're not defined by the good works that they try to do to earn their partner's love. They're not defined by a job title. They're not defined by money they make for their family or food they cook or the chores that they do. They're not defined by the sexual gratification that they have to provide to a partner when it's demanded. They deserve to love and to be loved unconditionally. No strings attached. I know that they feel like there's no such person like that. But you see, there is because they're one of them. I know if they truly had a chance to love someone, they'd give everything they had because the truth is they already do, but they're giving it to somebody that doesn't deserve it.
Yeah.
So just think of what it's going to be like
Mm.
when it's with someone who loves them exactly the way they do. Think of the fireworks. It's going to be amazing. That's my prayer for the listeners because they deserve the best of the best. And I want them to walk on their best path.
Yes. We all know that prayers can come true. Thank you, Asha, for giving that. And I want to thank you so much for sharing your story here with such courage and honesty. Your journey reminds us all that even in the darkest times that there is hope and that there is the power to rise again. Anyone that's listening who's questioning your relationship or wondering if what you're experiencing is abuse, you are not alone and your feelings matter. So, no matter where you are, I encourage you to reach out to a friend, a family member, a support organization. Even one conversation can help you see clearly, can take your first steps towards safety and reclaim your voice. I want to actually single out the men here because abuse and mental health struggles don't discriminate, and men often suffer silently. I want to encourage you to come forward. I want you to share your story, speak your truth, because sharing your story will not only help you heal, but it can also guide and inspire so many others who may be experiencing the same struggles. Seeking help and speaking up is a sign of strength. It is not weakness because your story matters. Men, women, non binary, it doesn't matter. We want to hear from you. If you can't find someone to reach out to, remember what Asha said. Even contact Empress Kupona. We can help research and give you some support in that area and some resources. Sometimes it's hard to do that on your own. You deserve to be seen, you deserve to be heard, and you deserve to be safe because you are worthy of love, respect, and freedom. Like Asha, you can rise from the ashes one step, one conversation, and one act of courage at a time. I'm Mandy, and this is Empress Kupona, your healing voice. Breathe deep, speak wild, and heal free.